Oklahoma is being severely underestimated this year. They currently have the ninth best odds to win the SEC this season behind Texas A&M, Missouri, and Tennessee. And they got an over-under win total of 7.5. Now, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek of my SEC record predictions. I got Oklahoma winning at least 9 games. And if they win 9 games, they possibly could sneak in as the 12th or 11th seed in the new expanded playoffs this year. Oklahoma is one of the most complete teams in this conference going into this year. They got a great defense that is being criminally underrated. This was a defense that was one of the best in the nation at forcing takeaways. They got outstanding secondary with lots of experience, a lot of talent, guys that they developed from recruiting, and these guys could be potential high-end NFL players potentially in the future. Offensively, they've done a good job of recruiting and developing on that end as what they've done on defense. They got a fantastic group of wide receivers. You got Jackson Arnold, who was the former Gatorade Player of the Year. I believe he was the Elite 11 MVP. Gavin Sawchuk was on the tear the last couple of games as last year. I mean, Oklahoma has a lot of talent and a lot of upside to win the SEC this year. Now, that may be a little bit bold, but I believe that Oklahoma is a top 5, top 6 team entering the SEC this year. And I think that they could be as good or possibly better than what Texas could be this year, because Texas has way more questions defensively than what Oklahoma has. The only concern that we have for Oklahoma is their offensive line, but I think they're going to have that fixed up this year. And if their offensive line shows up and Jackson Arnold plays up to his capability, this is a team that's ceiling is SEC championship. Oklahoma has recruited good enough where they are talented enough to rival other SEC schools like Tennessee, Texas. Hell, they already beat Texas. Texas beat Alabama and Tuscaloosa last year. So if you can beat Texas, you can beat any team in the SEC. The only SEC team I can't see Oklahoma beating this year is Georgia, because Georgia is just a completely different animal. But anybody else, I think is fair game. And I keep telling you guys that the SEC, I don't think it's going to go the way that a lot of people think it is. Texas and Georgia are the 2 favorites, but it's a strong possibility that one of those 2 teams don't even get into the conference championship game. Oklahoma is a big sleeper team in the Southeastern Conference this year. Brent Venables, there was a little bit of skepticism around him recently getting a new extension, but Oklahoma has improved under him every year, and they are recruiting at a way higher level under Brent Venables than what they ever did under Lincoln Riley. Every year that Brent Venables has been down there in Norman, they've had nothing less than a top 10 recruiting class, plus they're doing a really good job of developing these players. So they have a top 10 roster going into this year. And when you are a top 10 team from a talent standpoint, you have a great chance to win in the SEC. I don't think that Oklahoma, who just came off a 10-win season last year, is going to come into this conference and be a middle-of-the-road team. I love taking the over when it comes to their 7.5 win total. I definitely think that this team is better than what people are giving them credit for. They're going to have outstanding defense. This is a top 3 defense that they have walking into this year, and nobody's talking about them. You see, I think the problem with Oklahoma is that they aren't as flashy as what some of the other teams are, like Missouri, Tennessee. You don't know too much about Oklahoma because you don't really view them as a team that can always win it all every year. But I think that's a false perception to have about Oklahoma, because not a lot of people are really digging into how well they've recruited, how well they've utilized the transfer portal, and how good Brent Venables and that staff have been down there at developing talent. All those things are key components to being successful in the SEC. I can't see this squad winning anything less than 8 games this year. At the bare minimum, they should win 9. And their ceiling is possibly winning it all. We seem to forget that Oklahoma kind of, aren't they a blue blood in some regard? Haven't they won a few national titles in the past? Like, Oklahoma doesn't get talked about as much as what Texas does, and they've beaten Texas. Isn't that crazy? People are picking Texas to win the SEC, but yet they think Oklahoma is going to be a middle-of-the-road team when the gap between the two schools isn't that wide. Oklahoma, have they recruited up to the level that Texas has? No, but it's not too far off. Texas is recruiting at a top 5, nearly top 3 level, but Oklahoma isn't too far off. They're bringing in top 10 classes. They're bringing in elite quarterbacks. There's a strong chance that maybe Jackson Arnold is better than what Quinn Ewers is, and Quinn Ewers is in what, his 4th or 5th season? Don't underestimate the Sooners this year, because I really believe that this is going to be a team that is going to surprise a lot of people this year. Many people are picking them to go 7-5, 6-6. I think that is highly disrespectful considering how well they've gone about recruiting, developing talent, and what they have on that roster, especially on defense going into this year. The SEC kind of, over the last couple of years, has turned into what the Big 12 used to be. All offense, no defense. I watched Ole Miss and LSU trade blows. You know, it was a game that both those teams combined for 100 points. Lane Kiffin was sweating the last drive of that game when his defense had to get the stop because he knew that that defense might not have been good enough to get it done. Oklahoma is a complete team this year. There are a lot of teams going into the SEC this year where we either got concerns about how good the offense is going to be or how good the defense is going to be, or we don't trust the coaching. With Oklahoma, you get the best of both worlds. You know that the coaching is going to be pretty solid. You know that you got a great team from a talent standpoint. You're going to have a great defense that's finally going to be able to get after the quarterback. That's been their biggest problem, and they addressed that in the transfer portal. They got a transfer out of Miami of Ohio, and they got a really good defensive tackle that everybody wanted from TCU. They also have a really good NIL infrastructure. Those folks down in Norman are really passionate about their football. And I'm pretty sure that they're going to be way better than what a lot of you guys think they are this season, year 1 in the SEC.